Emily's life was anything but glamorous. Picture this: a single mom with a 5-year-old daughter, Sophie, living paycheck to paycheck in a tiny, run-down apartment that felt more like a prison than a home. The leaky roof, the creaky floors, and neighbors who'd argue louder than a football stadium made every day a struggle. But Emily wasn't just any mom. No, she was a fierce protector, a warrior in yoga pants and messy buns, ready to battle the world with little more than a tired smile and the determination of someone with no choice but to keep going. One late afternoon, while juggling groceries, Sophie's tantrum, and an incoming call from her landlord, whose voice practically dripped with slime, Emily's world flipped on its head. "Pay up or get out," the landlord sneered, relishing in his power. Emily's heart sank as she glanced at Sophie, clutching her favorite teddy bear, oblivious to the storm brewing around them. And right there, under the harsh glow of the setting sun, a sleek black car rolled into the parking lot like it belonged in a spy movie. Out stepped a man, but not just any man. This one looked like he belonged on the cover of a Billionaire's magazine or as the lead in some steamy Netflix series. Sharp suit, perfectly groomed beard, and an aura that screamed, "I get what I want." That man was Sheikh Khalid al-Mansour, though Emily had no clue yet. His gaze swept over the scene like a hawk assessing its prey, his dark eyes locking onto Emily's fiery defiance as she argued back. It wasn't just pity he felt, it was intrigue. Khalid didn't do rescue missions. His world was fast-paced deals and luxury, not stepping into the messy lives of strangers. But there was something about Emily that made him pause. Perhaps it was her voice, trembling but unbroken. Perhaps it was the way she shielded Sophie with her presence, like a lioness guarding her cub. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the fact that, for once, he was completely and utterly intrigued. And so, as the landlord smirked, clearly loving every second of Emily's distress, Khalid did something completely out of character. He walked straight up to them. "How much does she owe you?" His voice was smooth yet commanding, like silk wrapped around steel. The landlord blinked, confused, and stammered out the number, no doubt doubling it for good measure. Without missing a beat, Khalid pulled out his wallet, handed over the cash, and added, "Consider this your final payment." The landlord, caught off guard, hurried away, leaving Emily staring at Khalid like he'd just dropped from another planet. Khalid smirked slightly, clearly amused by her stunned silence. "You don't have to thank me," he said, his voice tinged with playful arrogance. "But you do owe me an explanation. Why does a woman like you tolerate a man like that?" And just like that, Emily's simple, predictable world suddenly collided with Khalid's, and nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again. Emily stared at Khalid, her mind racing faster than the words she could find. Who was this man? Why had he done that? But before she could say a single word, Sophie tugged at her shirt. "Mommy, is he a prince?" The innocence of Sophie's voice snapped Emily out of her daze, and for a second a wry smile played on Khalid's lips. "Not quite a prince, little one," he replied with a wink, "but I've been called that before." Emily wasn't sure if she should laugh, argue, or run far, far away. But Khalid, oh, he was just getting started. "You seem to be in a tough spot," he said, his voice smooth yet dangerously matter-of-fact. "I'd like to help with a proposition." She folded her arms defensively, her guard shooting up like an iron fortress. "And what exactly do you mean by that?" Khalid's gaze didn't waver as he leaned slightly closer, his words dripping with both sincerity and authority. "Work for me," he said simply. "I'll take care of your debts, your home, your child. In return, you'll be my assistant. Travel with me, manage my schedule, help me organize the chaos of my life." His tone was so calm, so assured, it almost sounded normal, until Emily raised an eyebrow. "So you're just swooping in, playing the knight in shining armor, and offering me a golden leash?" He chuckled, a low, rich sound that made Emily shiver, though she'd never admit it. "Not a leash," he corrected, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "A lifeline. I don't deal in charity. This would be a professional arrangement. But," he paused, letting the tension simmer in the air, I'm not a man who offers twice. You decide here and now. Emily wanted to scream, throw a dozen excuses his way, and storm off. But then she glanced at Sophie, her sweet, wide-eyed daughter clutching her stuffed teddy, oblivious to the weight of the world pressing down on her mom's shoulders. Could Emily really walk away from a chance to give Sophie everything she dreamed of? Swallowing her pride, Emily met Khalid's gaze, her voice steady though her heart was trembling. Fine, I'll work for you, she said, before narrowing her eyes slightly. But let's get one thing straight. I'm nobody's charity case. Khalid's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. I wouldn't dream of it. And with that, Emily unknowingly stepped into a new life, one filled with luxury, challenges, and a man she couldn't quite figure out. The transition was anything but smooth. One moment, Emily was clipping coupons and juggling bills. The next, she was stepping onto a private jet with Sophie holding her hand and eyes wide as saucers. Everything about Khalid's world screamed opulence, from the plush leather seats to the champagne glasses on silver trays. Sophie squealed with delight, running to the window to watch the clouds outside. Emily, on the other hand, felt like she'd stepped into someone else's dream. Khalid, ever the picture of composure, casually sipped on his coffee while scrolling through his phone. Every so often, he'd glance at Emily, studying her like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. It was both infuriating and intriguing. When Sophie came running back with a big grin, asking Khalid about the stars, his entire demeanor softened. He bent down to her level, explaining the constellations in a way that left even Emily impressed. It was the first time she saw the cracks in his polished armor. A man who wasn't just a powerful billionaire, but someone who cared. Days turned into weeks as Emily settled into her role as Khalid's assistant. The job was demanding, organizing meetings, managing his chaotic schedule, even putting out fires caused by overambitious rivals. But she kept up, proving time and time again that she was more than capable. But there was an unspoken tension between them. Khalid's sharp wit and occasional teasing remarks kept Emily on edge, while her fiery comebacks left him oddly amused. Like the time he asked, "Don't you ever take a break?" while she was filing documents at midnight. Without missing a beat, Emily shot back, "Do you?" For a moment, his smirk faded, replaced by something almost vulnerable. But just as quickly, the moment passed. Through it all, Khalid began to open up, sharing bits of his past, his late wife, his struggles to trust people, and the pressures of his family's expectations. Emily found herself drawn to him in ways she hadn't anticipated. But every time she felt a flicker of connection, she'd remind herself, this wasn't real. It couldn't be. Still, Sophie had no such reservations. She adored Khalid, often running into his office to show him her drawings or asking him to read her a bedtime story. And Khalid? He indulged her every time, much to Emily's surprise. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, he became a constant presence in their lives. More than just a boss, more than just a protector. For better or worse, he was becoming a part of their little family. As Khalid's world became their new reality, Emily couldn't shake the nagging feeling that this dream life wasn't built to last. Sure, he was kind to Sophie, attentive to Emily, and even oddly protective. But Emily knew how life worked. Fairy tales didn't come true for people like her. The first crack came during a tense family dinner at Khalid's sprawling estate. His brother, Faisal, a sharp-tongued traditionalist, wasted no time in making Emily feel like an outsider. She's American, Khalid, and a single mother. What exactly are you trying to prove? Faisal's words stung, though Emily masked her discomfort with a tight smile. Khalid, however, didn't hold back. I don't need to prove anything to anyone, he shot back, his voice firm, his eyes cutting like steel. But Emily couldn't miss the subtle tension. It was clear Khalid's family expected him to marry someone worthy, someone who wasn't her. The family wasn't her only problem. Khalid's business rival, Adnan, a cunning and ruthless man with a long-standing grudge, began poking around. Word of Khalid's mysterious American assistant had reached him, and Adnan wasn't above using Emily to bring Khalid down. One afternoon, as Emily was leaving Sophie's school, she was cornered by a smug Adnan. You think Khalid's your knight in shining armor? He sneered. Trust me, darling. Men like him don't save women. They use them. His words sent a chill down her spine, not because she believed him, but because they echoed the doubts she already harbored. Could she really trust Khalid's intentions? Was she just another pawn in a high-stakes game? To make matters worse, Khalid himself began pulling back, distracted by mounting business pressures and the conflict with his family. Emily couldn't help but feel the distance growing between them, and it scared her. Just as she began to wonder if she was in over her head, Sophie innocently asked one night, "Mommy, why doesn't Khalid smile as much anymore?" The question hit Emily like a punch to the gut. And then came the breaking point. At a glitzy charity gala Khalid insisted Emily attend, Faisal made another jab at her, loud enough for everyone to hear. "She doesn't belong in our world, Khalid. Stop pretending she does." Emily, humiliated, rushed outside, desperate for air. Khalid followed, his jaw tight, his eyes blazing with anger. Not at her, but at the situation. "Don't listen to them, Emily," he said, his voice low but intense. "You're worth more than all their opinions combined." But Emily wasn't ready to hear it. "Am I, Khalid? Or am I just another problem you'll fix and forget?" she snapped, her frustration finally spilling over. Khalid stepped closer, his expression softening in a way that made her heart ache. "You're not a problem," he said quietly. "You're the solution to a life I didn't even realize was broken." It was the closest he'd come to admitting his feelings. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. The storm brewing between them finally came to a head one evening when Adnan went too far. He orchestrated a scandal involving fake documents that implicated Emily in a scheme to sabotage Khalid's business. News outlets latched onto the story, painting Emily as a cunning gold digger who'd infiltrated Khalid's life for profit. Emily was devastated, not for herself, but for Khalid. She couldn't stand the idea of being the reason for his downfall, so she made a decision, one she thought would protect him. She packed her bags, leaving behind a simple note. "I won't be the reason you lose everything." When Khalid found the note, he was livid. Not with Emily, but with himself. How had he let her believe, even for a second, that she didn't belong in his life? Without hesitation, he launched a full-scale investigation, exposing Adnan's lies and clearing Emily's name. Meanwhile, Emily and Sophie, back in their humble town, were trying to rebuild their old life. But Sophie wasn't having it. "When is Khalid coming back?" she asked, her voice small but determined. Emily had no answer, but her heart ached every time Sophie mentioned his name. And then, one evening, as Emily tucked Sophie into bed, the familiar sound of a car engine echoed outside. She froze, her heart pounding. Stepping onto the porch, she found Khalid standing there, looking both furious and heartbreakingly vulnerable. "Did you really think I'd let you go that easily?" he asked, his voice a mix of frustration and raw emotion. "Emily, you're not a problem I can fix, and you're definitely not someone I could ever forget. You're everything." For the first time, Emily let herself believe him. Tears streaming down her face, she whispered, "Then prove it." And he did, with a kiss that told her, without words, that she was his forever. Khalid's public declaration of Emily's innocence and his unwavering support for her shattered every doubt she had. At a press conference meant to address the scandal, he silenced the room with a single, powerful statement. "Emily is not only innocent, but the most genuine and courageous woman I have ever met. Anyone who dares question her integrity will have to answer to me." The announcement not only cleared Emily's name, but sent a powerful message to Adnan and anyone else foolish enough to challenge Khalid. With Adnan's scheme exposed, his reputation crumbled, and he disappeared from the business world, defeated and humiliated. Despite the resolution, Emily was still hesitant. She struggled to believe she truly belonged in Khalid's world, fearing the judgment of his family and society. But Khalid wasn't willing to let her retreat. He planned a grand gesture, one that would prove his commitment to her and Sophie. One evening, Khalid led Emily and Sophie to the rooftop of his Dubai skyscraper. Twinkling lights surrounded them, and the skyline stretched endlessly into the night. Sophie squealed in delight as fireworks burst in the sky, painting the air with vibrant colors. Emily turned to Khalid, her eyes wide with wonder, just as he dropped to one knee. Emily, you didn't just change my life. You saved it. You gave me hope when I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. I don't just want you in my world, I want to build it with you. Marry me, he said, his voice steady, his eyes filled with genuine love. Overwhelmed with emotion, Emily couldn't find words at first, but then she whispered, yes, 1,000 times yes. Sophie clapped her hands and hugged them both, giggling. Does this mean Khalid's my dad now? Her innocent question drew laughter and tears, and for the first time, Emily felt like they truly belonged. Their wedding was nothing short of a fairy tale, a breathtaking fusion of cultures. The ceremony honored Khalid's Arab traditions while embracing Emily's Western roots. Emily, radiant in a gown accented with intricate Arabic embroidery, walked down the aisle with Sophie at her side, proudly carrying flowers. Khalid, resplendent in his traditional attire, couldn't take his eyes off her. As they exchanged vows, their promises weren't just about love, they were about trust, resilience, and the family they had become. The guests included both Khalid's family, who had finally come to accept Emily, and her friends who watched in awe at the love that had blossomed against all odds. The reception was filled with laughter, dancing, and heartfelt speeches. Sophie, in her tiny dress, stole the show with her excitement, proclaiming to everyone who would listen, I finally have a daddy. The joy in her voice melted even the coldest hearts in the room. That night, under a canopy of stars, Emily and Khalid shared a quiet moment together. You've given me more than I ever thought possible, Emily whispered. Khalid smiled, his fingers gently brushing her cheek. You gave me the one thing I never had, something money couldn't buy, a family. A year later, their lives were a blend of adventure and tranquility. Emily had taken on a more significant role in Khalid's business, proving herself as an asset not just in his life, but also in his work. Sophie, thriving in her new home, had a room that could rival a princess's palace and a father who doted on her every chance he got. Khalid and Emily made it a tradition to return to her hometown every so often, not as an escape, but as a reminder of where they began. One sunny afternoon, while watching Sophie play with neighborhood kids, Emily leaned into Khalid's embrace. Do you ever regret stepping into my world that day? She asked, her voice playful but curious. Khalid chuckled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. I don't regret a single moment. You weren't just a risk, Emily. You were the best decision I ever made. As Sophie ran over, holding a drawing of the three of them, Emily knew their story was far from over. They'd faced challenges, fought battles, and built something unshakable, a love and a life worth every twist and turn. And so, what began as a chance encounter turned into a story of resilience, trust, and an unbreakable bond, a testament that love, in its purest form, can transform lives. If this tale of redemption and romance moved you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who believes in love conquering all, and subscribe for more captivating stories. Let's continue exploring the extraordinary journeys that remind us. No matter how daunting the odds, love always finds a way.